One of the common motifs in Warhammer 40k is religion, primarily Christianity, which is used as window dressing for the Imperium. It is a sign that the Emperor had failed in his ultimate goal of preventing the Chaos Gods from corrupting humanity and turning them into worshippers who call upon the warp for their miracles. We can see the Emperor had taken great efforts to eradicate religion or any form of worship in Graham McNeill's The Last Church, and his act of retribution against Lorgar on Monarchia in Aaron Demski-Bowden's The First Heretic. That's why, despite his greatest efforts, the Emperor couldn't prevent one Mormon's innovations from being used by the Imperium to conquer the galaxy. Welcome to Ordo Historia. Hello lads and ladies, my name is Ickbard and welcome to Ordo Historia, where I show you how scarily similar the events are between reality and Warhammer 40k. Today I want to inform all of you on how without Mormonism, the Imperium would not have the weaponry needed to conquer the stars. To elaborate on this, let me set the picture. Where we left off last time, the Emperor conquered the planet using a combination of future tech, relentless nuclear bombardments, and World War I era tactics. During this time when he was building the Imperium, the Emperor was accomplishing several tasks to secure his rulership of Earth and soon enough the galaxy. One of those things was eradicating religion by any means possible, short of killing all of humanity. The reason for this was simply put, the Emperor knew that worship was a way to indulge in emotions. To indulge in one's emotions would give power to the warp, which in turn strengthens the four major chaos gods, Khorne, Nurgle, Tzeentch, and Slaanesh. One of the major moments that was written in the anthology series Tales of Heresy has a section dedicated to the Emperor who went by the name Revelation, debating the last priest on Earth, the last priest to the Church of the Lightning Stone, which is tended to by priest Uriah Stone, with the ultimate goal to remove his belief in religion or remove Uriah himself from this earth. Even though this story could be countered with a beginner's guide to apologetics, it goes over great details about the Emperor who eventually destroys all religion on the planet, sans one perpetual who is technically the Pope. But more on that later. So what's the problem? Where do Mormons come into play? John Moses Browning was the son of a gunsmith, Jonathan Browning, who invented the revolving rifle along with the harmonica rifle and was born on January 23, 1855. He was one of 22 children who lived in Ogden, Utah. John Moses Browning became an apprentice under his father when he was 7 and made his first gun at 10. John Moses Browning also made various rifles, shotguns, pistols, many of which we still see in the modern-day military. 2 of these guns are in common use with the Warhammer universe as well. We know them as the Browning M2 machine gun and the 1911, but 40,000 years in the future, we know them as the Heavy Stubber and Stub gun. The M2 is a 50 caliber heavy machine gun which was invented as an upgrade to the Browning 1919 in the year 1918, and was under further development until his death in 1926. It is a weapon that has served many years in many different types of environments and has made itself home to many places of fictional media, just like Warhammer 40k. Now, we're going to be talking about scale in a second. I just want you to keep in mind, a 50 caliber round is considerably large. Not just that, the M2 fires them roughly at 450 to 575 rounds per minute.
It costs $400,000 to fire this weapon for 12 seconds.
This is meant to chew into infantry, transports, and even low-flying aircraft. In Warhammer 40k, this weapon does the same, but has a known low armor penetration quality. Now, I just want you to understand this. Here is ballistic gel, which is to replicate human flesh, being shot by a 5.56 round, which is our NATO standard. Here's what a 50 caliber does. This is considered low armor pen in the grim dark future. The next gun you've seen floating around in memes on the internet is the Stub Pistol. This is the 1911, which has been in service since, well, 1911. It shoots 45 ACP rounds and has had various designs done since it hit the markets over 114 years ago. The stub gun has been in Warhammer 40k since its conception in Rogue Trader back in 1987, which makes sense because this is a fan favorite model for many firearms enthusiasts. It is important to note that both these guns were widespread and were beloved by people who were armed with them. I would even argue myself that if the STCs that held these designs were never found, it would have had a larger impact on the Imperium's expansion than if they lost the bolt gun. The fact you see heavy stubbers used in almost every Imperial and Chaos faction, whether it's the lowliest of cultists and conscripts to the knights that tower above them on the battlefield. If the Imperium did not have these weapons which were invented by Mormons, the Imperium would collapse. Now, on to that little detail about how the Pope saved the Emperor's life by sacrificing his very soul to a killing blow. Olanius Pius was a perpetual who was rather mundane compared to his counterparts. Olanius had no other abilities than being able to be born again, which made him a humbler person with a grounded perspective, which was a great boon as he was the Emperor's war master at the beginning of the Crusades. A notable thing about Olanius was he was openly Catholic and was known as Old Pius while fighting and leading others through various wars throughout the millennia of conflict. And as it's been established, the Emperor had destroyed religions left and right until Lorgar came around and Christianity was one of the many victims. This left the final Catholic to be Olanius Pius in Warhammer 40k. How does that make him Pope though? Well, the interesting factoid is the bare minimum you need to become Pope is to be a man and to be Catholic. The Pope doesn't run for election. A group of bishops will form a papal conclave instead to decide amongst all other bishops who is the new Pope based on the needs of the Church that these hopefuls can bring in as the leader. When there's no bishops, however, and there's only a singular person of the Catholic faith, it's easy to see how they would become the de facto Pope. In short, Olanius Pius, the Perpetual, who fought in countless eras and ages of war, was fielding the weapons created by Mormon gunsmiths as the Pope. Those very same weapons which were used to conquer and claim the Imperium. Despite the Emperor's greatest attempts, his very soul was saved by the Pope of a religion he had long since banished into obscurity. The artistic irony could not be any more prevalent. Thank you everybody for watching and tuning in. I'm Mick Bard, and this has been Ordo Historia. Please do like and subscribe, and I hope to get episode 3 out a little bit faster than it took to get episode 2 out. Thank you very much for watching.